The sound of the slap echoed through the hotel lobby, freezing every guest and staff member in place. Daniel Carter, owner of the Ocean View Resort, stood stunned with his hand against his reddening cheek, his 8-year-old daughter Emma clutching his leg in fear. No one moved, except for one woman, a complete stranger, who stepped forward with fire in her eyes. If you're wondering how this confrontation ends and what happens when two broken hearts find each other in the most unexpected circumstances, stay with me until the end. This story might just restore your faith in second chances. If you enjoy stories about finding love in unlikely places, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming content that reminds us all that sometimes, life's greatest gifts come disguised as our worst days. Daniel Carter hadn't always been a hotel owner. 5 years ago, he'd been a corporate lawyer with a corner office in downtown Seattle, married to his college sweetheart Melissa. They had it all, the dream house, successful careers, and their beautiful daughter Emma. But life has a way of shattering perfect pictures. The cancer took Melissa quickly, just 3 months from diagnosis to funeral. Daniel found himself a widower at 35 with a 3-year-old who kept asking when mommy was coming home. The grief consumed him until he could barely function in the high-pressure environment of his law firm. "You need a change, Dan," his father had told him during one of his increasingly rare lucid moments before dementia took even those away. "Remember how you always talked about running that little beachside hotel we stayed at in Oregon when you were a kid?" The idea took root. 6 months later, Daniel had cashed out his 401k, sold their house, and purchased the struggling Ocean View Resort in the small coastal town of Harbor Cove, Oregon. The hotel had seen better days, but Daniel saw potential, and more importantly, he saw a future where he could raise Emma in peace, away from the memories that haunted every corner of Seattle. For 4 years, he'd poured everything into renovating the hotel room by room, building a reputation for personalized service and homey comfort rather than luxury. The Ocean View wasn't 5-star, but it had heart. Locals began recommending it to visiting family members. Travel bloggers discovered its charm. Slowly, the hotel began to thrive. Daniel hired staff carefully, treating them like family. There was Rosa, the head housekeeper who snuck homemade cookies to Emma, old Jack, the maintenance man who taught Emma how to fix a leaky faucet, and Tina, the front desk clerk who was working her way through community college. The only exception was Victor Mercer, the hotel manager Daniel had hired 8 months ago when bookings increased beyond what he could handle alone. Victor had an impressive resume from luxury hotels in Las Vegas and New York. He was efficient, detail-oriented, and had connections in the industry that brought in new business. He was also, as Daniel was discovering too late, cruel to the staff when Daniel wasn't around and dismissive of Emma whenever she came to the hotel after school. "Children don't belong in a professional environment," Victor had said more than once, though Daniel always countered that the hotel was as much their home as their actual apartment on the top floor. That Tuesday afternoon in October had begun like any other. Emma had come to the hotel after school, settling in the small office behind the reception desk to do her homework while Daniel caught up on paperwork. He'd stepped out to help an elderly couple with their bags when he heard the commotion. "I told you to refold these brochures properly." Victor's voice carried across the lobby. "This is exactly the kind of sloppiness I've been talking about." Daniel rounded the corner to see Victor looming over Tina, who was blinking back tears. "I'm sorry, Mr. Mercer. I was helping 3 check-ins at once and..." "Excuses. This is why you'll never advance beyond this pathetic little hotel. No standards. Is there a problem?" Daniel asked, approaching them. Victor turned, his face instantly transforming from rage to professional concern. "Just a small quality control issue, Daniel. Nothing to worry about." "Dad." Emma's voice came from behind the desk. She ran toward him, clutching a paper. "I got an A on my science project. The one about tide pools." "That's amazing, sweetheart." Daniel knelt down to hug her, momentarily distracted from the tension with Victor. "Mr. Carter," Victor said through gritted teeth, we're in the middle of a staff correction. Perhaps your daughter could wait elsewhere? It's fine, Victor. We were just finishing up, right? Daniel looked at Tina, who nodded gratefully and slipped away to help a newly arrived guest. Victor's face tightened. This is exactly the problem. You undermine my authority every time. How am I supposed to maintain standards when you... We can discuss this later, Daniel said quietly, conscious of the guests within earshot. Emma, why don't you show me your project over by the fireplace? As Daniel turned to walk away, Victor grabbed his arm. We'll discuss it now. I've had enough of this family-run circus act. Either you start backing me up, or I walk, and take my industry contacts with me. Daniel gently removed Victor's hand. Let's take this to my office. No. Victor's voice rose. You need to decide right now what kind of hotel you're running. A professional establishment or a daycare center. Emma shrank against Daniel's side, her earlier excitement evaporating. Lower your voice, Daniel warned, feeling his own temper rising. We have guests. Guests who are probably tired of seeing your kid running around like she owns the place. The lobby had gone quiet. Daniel was acutely aware of every eye on them, of Emma trembling beside him, of the flush creeping up his neck. That's enough, Victor. We'll discuss your concerns privately, but right now, you need to step back and cool down. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Victor's face contorted with rage. You weak, pathetic excuse for a manager. His hand swung up and connected with Daniel's cheek with a crack that echoed through the silent lobby. Daniel staggered back, more from shock than pain. Emma let out a small cry. For a moment, no one moved, staff, guests, even Victor himself seemed frozen by the line that had been crossed. Then a woman's voice cut through the silence. How dare you? She stepped forward from where she'd been sitting in one of the lobby's armchairs. Daniel had noticed her earlier, it was hard not to. She had been working on a laptop, dark curly hair falling around her face, occasionally looking up to observe the comings and goings with intelligent eyes. Now those eyes were blazing as she positioned herself between Daniel and Victor. I don't know what's happening here, but I do know that you just assaulted this man in front of his child, in his own business, surrounded by witnesses. Her voice was steady but vibrating with controlled anger. If I were you, I'd leave now before someone calls the police. Victor seemed to deflate, looking around at the shocked faces surrounding them. Without another word, he turned and stalked out of the hotel. The woman turned to Daniel, her expression softening. Are you all right? Daniel nodded, still processing what had happened. I'm fine. Thank you for stepping in. He knelt down to Emma's level. I'm okay, sweetheart. Everything's okay. Emma's eyes were wide with unshed tears. He hit you, Daddy. Sometimes adults make very bad choices when they're angry, the woman said gently, crouching down beside them. But your dad is okay, and that man is gone now. Emma studied her for a moment, then asked with the directness only children possess, who are you? The woman smiled. My name is Olivia. Olivia Chen. I'm Emma. That's my dad. He owns this hotel. It's a very nice hotel, Olivia said. I've been staying here for 3 days, and everyone has been so kind, except that man. Daniel stood, extending his hand. Daniel Carter. Thank you again for intervening. I'm not sure what would have happened if you hadn't. Olivia's hand was warm in his. I'm just glad I was here. Some people think they can get away with anything. By now, the other staff had approached. Rosa put her arm around Emma while Jack asked if Daniel wanted him to go after that no-good suit. No, Daniel said. Let him go. He turned to address the guests who were still watching. I sincerely apologize for that disturbance. Please enjoy a complimentary drink in our lounge this evening. As the lobby slowly returned to normal, Daniel found himself still standing with Olivia. "Can I buy you a coffee?" he asked impulsively. "To thank you properly." Olivia hesitated, then smiled. "I'd like that. But maybe after you've had a moment with your daughter? She seems pretty shaken up." Daniel looked down at Emma, who was still pressed against Rose's side. "You're right. Another time, perhaps?" "I'm here until Friday," Olivia said. "Room 212. Rain check?" "Definitely." That evening, after tucking Emma into bed with extra stories and reassurances, Daniel sat in his small apartment kitchen with a glass of whiskey, replaying the day's events. He'd already called the hotel's lawyer to handle Victor's termination and potential legal issues. The staff had rallied around him, and several guests had approached him privately to offer support and witness statements if needed. But his thoughts kept returning to Olivia Chen. There had been something about her, not just her beauty, though she was certainly beautiful, but the way she'd stepped forward without hesitation, the quiet authority in her voice, the gentleness she'd shown Emma. It had been 5 years since Melissa died. 5 years of focusing solely on Emma and the hotel. 5 years of politely deflecting Rose's attempts to set him up with her niece, or Tina's hints about single mothers from Emma's school. 5 years of telling himself he didn't have time for dating, didn't have the emotional energy for it. Yet here he was, unable to stop thinking about a woman he'd barely met. The next morning, Daniel was at the front desk earlier than usual, pretending to review reservation logs while actually watching for Olivia. When she finally emerged from the elevator around 9, dressed in jeans and a blue sweater, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, his heart did something it hadn't done in years, it skipped. "Good morning," he said, trying to sound casual. "How are you today?" Olivia smiled, approaching the desk. "I'm well, thank you. How are you and Emma doing after yesterday?" "We're okay." Emma had some questions, but she's resilient. Kids often are. "They are," Olivia agreed. "Though sometimes they carry things we don't realize." There was something in her tone that made Daniel curious. "Do you work with children?" "I'm a child psychologist, actually. I specialize in grief counseling for kids." Daniel felt a jolt of recognition. That's actually something I know a bit about. My wife passed away 5 years ago, when Emma was 3. Olivia's expression softened. "I'm so sorry. That must have been incredibly difficult for both of you." "It was. It still is, sometimes." Daniel hesitated, then asked, "About that coffee?" "I have a break at 11 if you're free." "I'd like that," Olivia said. "There's a nice little cafe I noticed down the street. Seabreeze Cafe. They have the best blueberry muffins in town." At 11 o'clock, Daniel left Tina in charge and met Olivia in the lobby. The October day was crisp but sunny as they walked the short distance to the cafe, making small talk about the town and the unusually good weather. Over coffee, Daniel learned that Olivia lived in Portland, about 2 hours away. She was in Harbor Cove for a conference on childhood trauma at the community center. "I'm giving a workshop tomorrow," she explained. "On helping children process grief through art therapy." "That sounds fascinating," Daniel said. Emma went through a phase where she drew pictures of her mother constantly. "The school counselor said it was normal, but I always wondered if I was handling it right." "There's no perfect way to handle grief," Olivia said. "Especially with children. You just do your best to create a safe space for them to express what they're feeling." As they talked, Daniel found himself opening up about the challenges of raising Emma alone, of leaving his law career, of rebuilding their lives around the hotel. Olivia was an easy person to talk to. She listened intently, asked thoughtful questions, and shared enough about herself that it felt like a genuine exchange rather than a therapy session. He learned that she was 38, had never been married, and had chosen her career after losing her younger brother to leukemia when she was in college. "I saw how my parents struggled to help me process my grief while dealing with their own," she explained. And I realized there weren't many resources specifically for siblings of children who died. That became my focus in grad school, and it expanded from there. It's amazing how our hardest experiences can shape our purpose, Daniel said. Olivia nodded. What about you? Do you miss practicing law? Daniel considered the question. Sometimes I miss the intellectual challenge. But I don't miss the person I was becoming in that environment, always stressed, barely seeing Emma, constantly postponing the things that mattered for someday. He looked out the cafe window toward the ocean. Melissa's death was devastating, but it also woke me up. Life is too short to spend it doing something that doesn't bring you joy. And does the hotel bring you joy? Daniel smiled. Most days. It's hard work, but it's ours. Emma loves growing up there, she knows all the regular guests, helps Rosa fold towels into swans, charms tips out of tourists. And I get to be present for her life in a way I never could have been in Seattle. Their coffee stretched into lunch, and Daniel was surprised to find it was nearly 2 o'clock when they finally walked back to the hotel. I've taken up your whole day, he said apologetically. Olivia shook her head. Not at all. I enjoyed it. I was just going to review my presentation notes again, but I've practically memorized them at this point. At the hotel entrance, Daniel hesitated. Would you like to have dinner with Emma and me tonight? Nothing fancy, just at our apartment upstairs. Emma's been asking about the lady who helped Daddy, and I make a decent pasta. Olivia looked surprised, then pleased. I'd like that very much. Emma was initially shy when Olivia arrived for dinner, hiding partially behind Daniel as she opened the door to their apartment. Emma, you remember Ms. Chen from yesterday? Emma nodded, peeking around her father's leg. You can call me Olivia, she said, crouching down to Emma's level. I like your unicorn shirt. Purple is my favorite color too. Emma's eyes widened. Really? Daddy says purple is a very sophisticated color. Sophisticated, Daniel corrected with a smile. And it is. I brought something for you, Olivia said, pulling a small package from her bag. Your dad mentioned you like to draw. Emma stepped forward, curiosity overcoming shyness. She unwrapped the package to find a set of watercolor pencils. These are special pencils, Olivia explained. You can draw with them like regular colored pencils, but then if you brush water over your drawing, it turns into a watercolor painting. Wow! Emma's face lit up. Can I try them now, Daddy? Please. Daniel laughed. After dinner, sweetheart. Why don't you show Olivia your tide pool project while I finish cooking? By the time they sat down to eat Daniel's spaghetti bolognese, Emma had warmed up completely to Olivia, chattering about school, her best friend Zoe, and the family of seals they sometimes saw from the hotel's beach access. Daniel watched them together, feeling something unfamiliar and warm spreading through his chest. It had been so long since he'd invited anyone into their private space, into their little family unit of 2. He'd forgotten how good it could feel to share a meal, to hear Emma's laughter mingling with another adult's voice, to catch someone's eye over his daughter's head in shared amusement at something she said. After dinner, as promised, Emma tested out her new watercolor pencils while Daniel and Olivia had coffee on the small balcony overlooking the ocean. She's wonderful, Olivia said, watching through the glass door as Emma concentrated on her drawing. You've done an amazing job with her. I've tried, Daniel said. There are days I feel completely out of my depth, especially as she gets older. There are questions about her mother, about growing up, that I don't always know how to answer. That's normal, Olivia assured him. All parents feel that way, single or not. Do you want children? Daniel asked, then immediately backtracked. I'm sorry, that's personal. You don't have to.